You retire a legend or live long enough to become Hooksy. Well, now he's worse than Hooksy, and I'm not gonna lie,
That's still
they went
Banter.
for
That's still a
Hooksy.
good line. Right, we're back for Snake and Banter. It is a return guest joining us. It is obviously Austin, who was also technically a guest on my pre-match for the core stream thingamajig at Blast Rivals Fort Worth. I've also can confirm I've met him in real life now. There you go.
It's true.
You're not just an internet imaginary person who might not be real. You know, now it's as real as it can be. So anyway,
Yeah, that was great.
Here's the thing. People will know, Austin, that the style of how we do this show now is we like to just dive straight into whatever the spiciest take is. So I feel like you have reflected on your appearance last time, because on the appearance last time, if everyone remembers, you had a take in 2020, the year of our Lord 2024. You had the most unpopular take ever, which was karrigan just needs to retire now. Like, no questions asked, just get the fuck out the game. Basically, like, thanks for all the years and so long, you know, like, so 2 years later, let's see where you're going to go. What is your ugly take, Austin?
Yeah,
What's ugly at the moment?
my ugly take is, karrigan still needs to retire. I think the problem is that 2 years later, 2 years since I originally said it, we have two cool results to show for it, which is 2 major finals and no trophies. And actually, just recently failing to qualify for Cologne, to be bailed out by Falcons to make the major, to still not win any trophies yet, which, you know, maybe it's inevitable that he'll be back on top and, you know, he'll be winning. But I just feel like, I don't know if you guys saw the most recent award that he got of having the worst KD in all of professional Counter-Strike. It's just, how much can his IGLing bring to the table that can compensate for playing a 4v5? Like, it can't be that good. I mean, you have Mauisnake, Nico, Kiyosuke, even Testis is playing good, and they still can't beat Legacy in a best of 5. That doesn't make any sense to me.
The saddest thing about that take and how it has actually aged well is that I would have gone as far to say I look at some of the IGLs that have won tier 1 trophies while karrigan has still failed to do so ever since he made that take. And you have a handful of people. You have Hunter on G2. You obviously have Apex, you've got Chopper, you've got Magix doing it, you got Brolin winning a trophy, you've got Kicks, I think, you had Kicksan winning a trophy at one point. And then I started to think, okay, well, should I start including other trophies? Because, there's been some tier 2 tournaments too, and karrigan even played those.
Yeah, true.
And he hasn't won. He didn't win those either. He didn't win.
True.
He didn't win HLC, Cyprus. He didn't win Draculan. Like that. That's when I think it gets pretty damning. And I think that a career is still worth playing with a bunch of second places and no trophies. But in a karrigan GOAT IGL conversation, I have actually kind of found only more reasons to not have him at my number 1 and number 2 since you made that take. Whereas before, the mythos of karrigan being able to assemble different types of rosters, get them competitive, win trophies with them, that has more or less evaporated. It's actually almost looking like the case is weakening for that, being the one feather in his cap over people like Apex, like Glaive, who now I firmly have ahead of him in my GOAT in-game leader rankings. So I like the take a lot because you're doubling down. And at the time, it was crazy. The cope that followed was that he's still making major grand finals. But now even running that cope is not as strong, especially given the most recent season.
Yeah, I mean, and how far is the major final argument even going to get you when you're still not able to win the tier 2 trophies? Like, losing to Big in a final is like, you just can't have that happen. But I felt like back in 2024, I saw like kind of where it was going. Like his impact was falling off in game, off of a cliff. The team just wasn't looking as coordinated as they had in the past, and it just, I just knew that he was going to ruin his reputation. What did I say? I think you retire a legend or live long enough to become Hooksy. Well, now he's worse than Hooksy, and I'm not going to lie,
that's still Banter. That's still a good line. Also, that line still aged well as well. Yeah.
Yeah. They went for Hooksy day 1 that he trolled Nico's trophy, and now karrigan's he just trolled one for him, and they haven't said anything yet.
The problem is, right, I will say, you've picked a hell of a timing to bring this take, because obviously right now, after they've just blown the CAC final, like if that result was even different, it'd be a lot easier to make an argument against it, because the difference is, right, if I go to where your take was made in 2024, I could just do the analysis of, yeah, but like, for example, even some of those FaZe names weren't as good, were they? Like Brokey actually's probably never been as good again. Even people, Maui always brings it up and he is 100% correct. If Robs didn't do that insane fucking Shanghai Major, he wouldn't have been HL TV top 20 that year, guys. Like, that would have been the year that would have been the blip. And also, he only crept, I think he was 19th or something. He was like right at the bottom of the list, or 18th or something. So actually, people forget that wasn't even the Rops he couldn't see in Vitality. He was playing way worse. Then you go and look at the one where they had Elise. Obviously, like, Elise has had a bunch of problems in teams. There's reasons why, even if he was doing well, you could understand why maybe there was some like synergy disconnect, or they didn't have the same team culture. Then you look when they get Jacob. Obviously, that one, if you want to blame karrigan, you have to, it's whether you think karrigan did the move or not, or does FaZe have money. So there's a million angles you could normally go with, but the difference is, at the end of it all, if you then say, well, what if I gave you right now Prime Odyssey and then Keisuke is looking awesome and you have Nico, yeah, at that point you probably should be beating Legacy in a best of 5 and winning the tournament. Like, that one's very, very, in fact, I don't think there is an argument against the Legacy one. The Astana one's fine, Spirit, Stonk, it's okay, we can all find a way to, so you picked a really good timing. And also, here's why it's quite cool where you brought this topic up now, because actually within the next, say, like 2 months, karrigan can either make you look really stupid, or you're just going to be 100% correct, mate. Like, if he just bombs the major, if they never win a trophy with this roster, then actually the take age is even better. So it's actually on karrigan now. The only way he can prove you wrong is in the server, mate. So we don't have to paint it in otherwise. I've got a couple of other angles for you. Do you want to come back on that? Do you have something?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Like, I love karrigan. Like, I don't like want to see him fail at all. But that's why I wanted him to retire, because I knew it was actually to that point.
Maybe people are missing that detail. That's why you're making the joke of like retire a legend. Like, you want him to retire and people to remember. I'm pretty sure I'll give you the obvious example. If some kid only watched CS2, bro, those guys think that like Simple actually blows. They don't even know why we're having this discussion about Simple as you, because they've only watched him in BC gaming and, you know, standing in Falcons and shit like that. So I know what you mean. Like, it's kind of sad to think there'll be some kids that if Simple doesn't turn it around will never even know he was good at CS. So in some ways it maybe is better to just be in a highlight video 5 years ago. Also, I'll tell you a couple of other angles when you're bringing it up. Right, first of all, it is actually why the karrigan case gets harder and harder to make, because I've basically said this to Maui and people on my shows recently. Actually, at this point in time, about the only rosters you could put him on aren't FaZe type rosters, because they used to be like min-maxing, you know, they didn't really have true superstars. They had like, if anything, you needed a superstar team. You basically needed to have Falcons, which you end up getting, or like Fury or something. You need like a roster where every player's some mad frag potential, and that would make up for the fact he's definitely, at this point in time, we can all categorically say he's never going to improve as a fragger. This only gets worse as it goes on, and his fragging numbers are very, very low anyway. Here's the angle I would bring up, right? I'll give you an analogy. Now you'll be able to fuck with this one. Do you know the thing that's gotten really, really long in the tooth as a narrative in basketball is that classic one that goes like this? Because on a roster, you don't need every spot in basketball. You know, some players never play. They're at the end of the bench. They might not have any minutes except for garbage time. You know, when they do that thing, and the most famous person they did this with was the player Udonis Haslem on the Heat, where like, bro, when they're like 10 years past even being an eligible player, you're like, no, but we've got to have him though, because he brings that veteran component. You know, when they sell that angle all the time, they're like, and obviously they've done this with a bunch of players in the modern day, and the idea is that guy's there to add culture elements, isn't he? He's there to tell the young player, you know, listen to what the coach says, like, don't be arrogant. You know, I've been with other star players, I can tell you what they're like. The problem with that always becomes, even in basketball where that guy doesn't have to play, eventually he is used in a roster spot though. Like, what if anyone ever got injured or we had to insert someone for a matchup? Like, the problem there becomes, does what he brings, that veteran aspect, make up for like essentially an able body who could just play a role in the game? I think karrigan's got the ultimate version of that, because essentially, like, since we know he's going to frag badly, he has to have unbelievable calls. He has to actually have all the upside that everyone like me who's coping right now, like, he's fixed case, okay, look, he's going to get like, he's going to figure out Tess's role. He has to do that, because individually he's going to be so bad, everyone else has to basically get fixed in the team. So I'm not against this take, actually, even though I understand, I in some ways, I'm in a toxic relationship. I just believe he's the best guy for me. You don't know him like I know him. And, you know, he can improve. He can stop drinking, you know, go to church. And then he's going to turn his life around. You know, we can have a beautiful marriage. It's all going to work out. Stop hating on him. So, and then the last thing I'll say is this. I'll tell you one other reason why it's a lot harder to make the case for karrigan. I'll give you a quick analogy that I think everyone will get. You know how even late last year, when there was moments when Bit was kind of actually having bad times in Navi and his numbers were bad, or you can even think this year, the impact in Mouse has been kind of shit at times. Notice how even when they were bad statistically, everyone did that thing where it's like, Falcons should sign those two players. Because at the time, even though their individual form was bad, the whole perception is, yeah, but they're players who play like shit CT roles and play as your anchor, but they can do it in a national team. So they were sort of the most famous examples of that role, right? Karrigan used to have that locked up. If you wanted international IGL with any set of stars, as Maui says, any players, it could be all, you could have a random new set of players, you could have old players. This was the guy you went to. Here's the problem. Everyone does that now. That's what every other IGL in Counter-Strike does. So unfortunately, his whole selling point's also somewhat gone. So you actually you almost have to religiously believe in Karrigan to transcend the game and do it. Otherwise, I think you could end up being right. So I'm actually just very interested in 2 months from now to come back to this and see if it happened or not. I think that's a banger. Because it is this team or bust, let's be real.
All I can say is I hope that he proves me wrong, because it's just going to be such a sad end to his career if he gets cut from Falcons after like the Cologne Major. Like I really do think it could be that dramatic. Like I think they could bomb the Cologne Major and they're just like, yeah, no, we're not doing.
I like the way Austin is doing that abusive shit. Like, you know, when your parents beat you and they go, it's going to hurt me, Mom, it's going to hurt you. And you just go, really? Is it though? He's going, I don't want this to be true, Karrigan. I don't want to have to say, but you better get the fuck out the game now. Like, I love it. I love it. I want you to prove me wrong. I love it. I love it.
I have some very interesting stats about this as well. I don't know if you know this, but since he's joined Falcons, he's only had 2 maps with a green rating out of 30.
Oh, what? Only 2?
And only 3 maps where he's finished positive. Only 3. Out of 30, which is insane. Like, I'm telling you, they're playing 4v5, like full stop 4v5.
Oh yeah, camera's frozen, Maui. Just turn it on and off again.
It's just...
Yeah.
He's back.
I don't know what
there you go.
It's just actually insane. Like, I don't know.
That is crazy.
Here's what I want to have happen. I think there are some like valuable things that Karrigan can bring to Falcons, especially players like Mauisnake and Kyosuke. Hear me out. He should just coach that team. Like, actually, he should just coach that team.
That's interesting.
Like, once this major's over, if they don't do well, just get rid of Zonic. I know, whatever. And then put Karrigan there so he can actually coach those players up. Let Nico IGL, and everything else is fine.
Yeah, I like that take, too. I'm kind of there with you on that one. I have the... I mean, I feel like I'm one of the only people I see bring up the argument that part of the in-game leader role is still being an in-game player, because... if you just can only call well, if you only are a tactician, then why aren't you just a coach? Because that level of fragging has gotten to the point where it is just, you can't win tournaments like that. The lowest, so just for context, I look back at this with some people, just like, what is the lowest rating that anybody has ever had on a winning team at any CS2 event? It's a 0.81 rating. Karrigan has a 0.77 average for the last 3 months. His average is literally lower than the lowest rating anybody has ever had on a winning team. And the lowest person, by the way, funnily enough, is 1, him, and 2, it's Ema at the Copenhagen Major. So it's just that it's extremely hard to even justify his inclusion, even if his calls are great, because you literally need 10 out of 10 calls every single round. And I'll just be real, that just was never Karrigan's strength. They were never 10 out of 10 round 1 through 12 on the T side. And then what do you even have to say about the CT side when you are... I mean, I haven't looked at it statistically, but I'll just say it outright. I think he's the worst CT side player on any tier 1 team right now. There's nobody that is worse at anchoring a bomb site right now. I would rather have literally any single player. I'd rather have Major defending my bomb site today than Karrigan. That's how bad
it's probably true.
No,
he's a better frag.
That's just true. It's just true.
I know, he is.
Yeah,
it sounds wrong, but it's true. It is true.
Yeah. So
also, I do appreciate, even though you just threw it in there as a piece of trivia. Again, this is why I will die on that hill that was a fluke major win, because I always tell people they weren't that team later when they had all the finals. Like, bro, that Ima stat, it is crazy. Because remember, he isn't even the fucking supportive player. Like, he actually had unbelievably bad stats for a major
being set
winner.
up.
It's
he's
nuts,
being
innit?
set up.
Yeah. It's why it's so harsh, because that's one of the only times ever, Maui, and this is fucked, but it's just true. It's one of the only times ever where I can almost go to a player in star roles in a team and go, yeah, you actually not only didn't do anything to win this major, you almost stopped them winning it. It's just like, that's so fucked, because everyone else in the team is like, yeah, we did it. And he's like, yeah, I did, sort of, like, fucking... And also, it just continues the ongoing, like, invisible Cold War feud, which is that for some reason, Maui, just by being earnest and honest about what he thinks about Ima, just makes Ima hate him more and more and more. Even though, actually, fair enough, Ima came on this show a few years ago. You know,
I know. I know.
We tried to do our best. We tried to extend the olive branch, but I know what it's like, Maui. The problem is, eventually, unless someone actually is quite cool like Fallen, eventually you're going to have to say something they're not going to like. So they're not going to like this, but bloody hell, here I go again. Send tweet. There you go.
Yeah, it's not really a big coincidence that the players I'm cool with have just been good for 4 years straight. Like,
that helps.
It's not what I even want to, like. I'm not even picking them for personality reasons or anything like that. It's just that I only can say good things about them. If they keep playing well, when am I going to ever say something bad about K Serrato? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So he has no reason to dislike me.
Right. Okay then, Maui. What is your ugly point?
My ugly point is, oh shit. Lost it because I was thinking it was bad actually. Okay, my ugly point is on another IGL who actually should have probably been the karrigan replacement, and it's how his stocks have completely fallen off a cliff. And I don't know if I even see a way for it to return. I mean, siuhy has just lost so much of the good faith that has been instilled in him for the time that he had on Game Religion, getting to the grand finals of the major, and the time that he had on Maus. Because, unfortunately, when it comes to, I'd say with Game Religion, there's a few aspects you could pick on for why they were good. I think the problem is that a lot of the credit is sort of divvied between Ema having a life major. Funnily, it's the major that he plays super well at that he loses, but the major he plays badly at is the one that he wins. Ash, who now we have begun to revere as a coach. And then also Acor kind of weirdly having a great tournament for himself too. Even a couple of the other guys on the team, like Volt, for example. A lot of guys looked kind of better than they ever did, like they were in career form for that major. But at first, we give that credit to siuhy. Then we go to Maus, and then we see him reunite with the guys that he played with on Maus NXT, and they win a couple of trophies. I think it's a couple ESL Pro Leagues, a Bet Boom LAN. So they won 3 trophies, and again, team looked very cohesive. I thought their mid-rounding actually looked quite good. And then he leaves, or he's benched, and then they bring in Brolin, and I will say, I think siuhy looked as like a better in-game leader, and I think that the results actually spoke that they were the better team. Like when they won a couple of the pro leagues that they won, even having the Maus Pro League title or whatever it was, like the studio sports title that people sometimes attributed to them during that time, that's better than only winning a single event that was kind of more tier 1.5 at Cluj in 2025. Because in some of those EPL runs, they beat like Vitality, they beat G2, they beat a good version of Liquid back then. I think they beat they beat a handful of teams that were in the top 5 or 6, and they were very impressive runs. So in my opinion, the Maus that was led by siuhy was better than the Maus led by Brolin. People weren't even willing to accept that at first, weirdly, but then now I think now that you see the totality of both of their careers on those rosters, it's quite evident. But now, with Liquid, like this team has such a problem of being able to close out rounds. I'd say that you have 2 good really strong entry fraggers, and yet you still don't seem to be able to set them up in the right way too. And I just think that siuhy, in general, in essence, like siuhy has lost so much of what I put in him, what the community had about him. And it almost feels like, as rumors emerge about the Crimbo move to Liquid, I don't even really mind if that's to be the in-game leader now, because I just think that they need some sort of swap that's drastic. Because Crimbo, reminder for people, he was the IGL of the big academy team. I think at one point on the main big roster, He actually called for them too. Role for role does really suit more for him to take NAF's spot, but my opinion, I don't think Liquid's leaving the Americas region. I don't think they're going to try to give that up, because if they do that, they're not making the major. And that even though they've changed major payouts in whatever way, that still is kind of the only lifeline that this team has. So I think that siuhy is going to have a really hard time if he's the one out of this Liquid team.
Yeah. I agree with you. siuhy's IGLing, he actually reminds me of an NA IGL. Not like a specific one, but just a stereotypical one where NA IGLs will randomly just come up out of nowhere. They'll like break into like ECL, and everybody thinks, oh, this guy is like leading a team of nobodies into, they're getting good results. And then that IGL gets poached, and then they never do good again. And I think that one of the problems that newer IGLs have when they come up is that first team that they come up with, where everything is like learned together and like they kind of share the same ideas, the same like philosophy of how the game is played. They're just better. Like everybody on that team, you have something super special, and once you start replacing pieces of that, they can't be the same in other teams. And I think siuhy is a really good example of that. Like, you know, you put him into Liquid, he has such good star players. Like, I mean, what can you say? They should not be barely making the major in North America with Malbs and Elige and Naf and even Ultimate. Like this just shouldn't be happening. And I mean, if you look at his rating on Maus versus on Liquid, like right now his rating is like a 0.87 or something on Liquid, and it was like a 0.97 on Maus. So he's gotten a lot worse individually. I think he's a lot less comfortable. Probably not used to having pushback from, I mean, recently players like Elige, like probably giving a lot of input on how the game should be played. It probably didn't happen as often on Maus in the beginning or even in Gamer Legion. But that's just my opinion from, you know, a player's perspective, having played around IGLs that have had similar things happen. And also, I mean, his performance is just not good anymore.
By the way, I totally agree with you, Maui. I have the same perspective because I always give the example. This just reminds me of how people used to really disingenuously compare that famous move where Huxley became the G2 IGL, then won tournaments. And they would go, how could Alexi B be good? He wasn't doing this. And I used to go, yeah, but Huxley had JKS. Alexi B had Jax, for fuck's sake. Like, where's Jax now, by the way? Like, he never did anything after that. People don't know. Like, the difference was JKS, if you remember, one of those tournaments, like a kind of 8 or something, he was like the fucking contender for the MVP of the tournament. That was like the 4th best player on your team. So I always used to think, but it's not the same team even. And I think this one's even more extreme, Maui, because as we're saying, first of all, I think everyone would acknowledge Spinks is a better like star element than fucking Brolan. But that's what he used to have. He used to have Brolan, the guy who became the IGL, but instead of Spinks, like one of the best lurkers in the world, who the joke is on Vitality itself was like in the team that used to win every semi-final. So first of all, I think actually Brolan's had more talent to work with. And I'm with you, yes. Even though you could certainly argue maybe he had more consistency. Like that last year they were very good. They did that thing where they would only lose to the elite teams in the latter part of the year. They were in almost every semi. That's all true. But the difference is, I do think if you look at the 2024 lineup, it's mad slept on, bro. Like, first of all, that was the year they actually became contenders. Before that, they used to just be the Dark Horse team where they were still integrating the academy players. That was the first, like, real year where siuhy just had all the players. If you remember, obviously that was even when he'd lost Frozen. That was the guy coming up who'd been, like, the guy that the whole team was built around. So he had to transition to then it was a team that was based around, you know, the committee thing of exertion and fucking Torji and a little bit of Impact doing all the anchor roles, and then Brolan's just your fill player. So already I think actually it's a harder squad to make work. And I'm with you. If you go look at the results, bro, people have genuinely just forgotten that year. Like, remember, as you said, when they would win tournaments, by the way, they won tournaments that year. The famous thing was they would beat the best teams to do it. No one said you can't beat the best teams. It's what 2025 Maus was. What people used to say was, you just don't do it in an arena. Your studio merchants, remember, that was the famous line. The point we all had was, you already can beat everyone. You just can't do it in the official game. People will forget it was actually Maus that was the first team that immediately that RMR clapped the spirit that just won Cado and was like unbeatable. They immediately even beat them on LAN. True, it was just an RMR game, but the point is, in the server, that was a very strong fucking team. And so I'm with you, actually. I think, sadly, the thing is, that is what makes me not completely out on siuhy as like a player in Counter-Strike. I feel like he if you mix together, yeah, the Game Legion Peter was brief, but I think what he did in Maus implies, if he has the right team, he can be a good IGL. The problem I have is this: I've seen none of that in Liquid, and even worse, it's why I do like a weird like meta analysis, which is a bit like conspiratorial, which is, you know, that take I had of Kixan in Falcons, where it goes like this. I don't judge Kixan that harshly for Falcons, because I get the vibe. If you're in a teammate where you have superstars like Mauisnake that definitely should have the green light the whole time, Nico, who every single team he plays in seems to play the way he wants to play, and then Zonic, whose whole thing is like, it's like, listen, in a non-offensive way, he's like Jabba the Hutt. He's like the big boss, isn't he? He's like, everything runs my way. Listen, we all know why that connection was simultaneously made, but then slightly disclaimer. Because what I mean is, he's the big boss. It's his project. He's even basically told her, I am Falcons, basically. I am the bag. I do whatever Zonic the bag in this analogy instead of Jabba the Hutt, obviously. Zonic the bag. Because obviously in this scenario, the reason we're all giving him the blame is because he seems to be the only coach that has complete control over whatever the fuck happens, an unlimited checkbook. So what I always used to think of in this team was, at the end of all that, what does Kixan even get to do? It sounds like he's got a very limited version of I'm the IGL, even though normally we trust the IGL to be doing everything and we give him all the praise like Jim or LXCP or something. So part of me does think that siuhy has a similar thing in Liquid now. And the reason why I have that theory is. I actually think the biggest problem Liquid has in siuhy's era is they also remind me a bit of some of the Falcons players where it looks like you play just not to get fired, if you know what I mean. You don't play to be a good player and to win. You play to not be the next one that gets kicked out of the team and doesn't get to have the cool salary. And so what that means in the game, if you look how like Liquid plays, for example, is you do things like matchmaking level shit where it's like you trip over on the way out the site so you're out the first in, or you let the guy go 1 second quicker as opposed to trading him. Oh, he's dead now, I better rotate off. You just do baity shit like that. And so sadly, I also get the sense that like I'll add in, the other reason why I have that theory about siuhy and Liquid is because we, to this day, the fact people don't get this. The fact that we're never allowed to know what he did wrong in Maus. Yeah. It's a bit like the Senzu thing. It makes you immediately assume it's something really, really bad. Like it could even just be like you had a mild dispute and then you were like, look, I can't work with you. I can't work with you. And you just let put in sorry. When you make it like, he's gone, and don't ask why, and moving on anyway, here's Roland. That makes it sound like, look, the joke would be that he's fucking everyone's girlfriends. I don't know that he's on the heroic end of the equation here, but I would actually imagine it's more just like he had some massive clash from people personality-wise, and they thought it was like, he couldn't get past it. Because the reason I bring this up is, part of me feels like in Liquid, he's too scared to just be whoever the fuck siuhy is, because he's worried that the same thing's going to happen, so... That's all speculation, but at the end of it all, I'm sorry, he should be kicked the fuck out of this team. With that said, though, I agree with you, Maui. I actually think, sadly, people are going to delete his time in Maus, but Maus is the reason to give him another shot, if anything, in a different team.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think I would hope that he's built up enough trust that some team will take a stab at him or try him out if they're having IGL problems. But the problem is that when watching Liquid, they just look like they're not connected. They don't look like they're on the same page. I feel like at least twice per half, you'll see a guy who just walks out. Sometimes it's siuhy, sometimes it's Maul, sometimes it's Naf. They'll just walk forward aimlessly, and I actually wonder, what was that supposed to accomplish? Yes. Like I get that they're trying to find some space, but it's just like you're either in a man advantage or you're against a bad buy, and then they'll just bundle these rounds that are just so handed to them on a silver platter, but then it feels like nobody has trust in whatever the system is that's going on. So some of that I will say might not be completely siuhy's fault, sure, except for when he dies himself in that fashion. Sure. But some of the other guys just seem like, yeah, I'm going to take a timing here. Like, I feel like Liquid more than any other team has 3-4 guys that are like, I think I have a timing, let me go. And it's just like, oh, you're costing every advantage across the map right now. And I don't know why siuhy can't wrangle them in. I think he had probably a lot more control. I think that might be the one thing that was going for him on the Maus team is that because they grew up with him on the academy team, exactly, respected him a bit more.
Probably helps also that your coach was the academy guy too as well. People forget that detail, right? I'm sure he was given the car keys, as it were. It sounds like it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's just clashing philosophies that are at play with this team, or he just has not gained the respect from his teammates, but one or the other. Either way, it's bad, and it's a bad look for him, unfortunately, above all else.
All right, here we go. My ugly point. I'm gonna be very on brand here, but also it's gonna help Maui too, in a sense, because they didn't hire him either. So fuck him. Let's just go in on him in it. Sorry, I've picked as ugly. Not bad, ugly. I think the talent announcements for the major are ugly, and here's why. Because I think, first and foremost, and I don't just say this because he's on the show, I would obviously always do the joke the other way around. That's why he's on the show. Like, Maui should be on this fucking list. I don't care. I'm sorry, I've said this a million times, I'll say it again. I don't give a flying fuck that ESL, through matters of preference, choose not to hire Maui for their other events. I think the major should be treated like you aren't. That's not totally just your event. It is your event, but it's not totally just your event. You're also the custodian of the World Championship at Counter-Strike. I think on some level, you should always, for the major, put aside any like minor things that, well, I prefer this person, and you should just hire whoever you think is the best in the scene. And if you really believe, I do, that Maui's one of the top 3 or 4 analysts, then he should at a minimum be on the major. By the way, even if you do it cynically, then let's say then ESL goes, yeah, but it's my event. Okay, then you don't have to put him on the final. You don't have to put him on all the matches. Make him the lowest on the rotation, but at least have him on the event. At least have him have one playoff game and some stage 3 games or stage 2, whatever it is. I think he should at least be involved. So Maui, I think, is a slam dunk. I would also go further and say that, again, obviously everyone will know my bias here. an event that's going to have all these fucking players from Bet Boom, from fucking Spirit, all these players that speak Russian. Can we just have Heku as one of the sideline reporters? Yes, Shox is fucking amazing at interviews. She can't speak Russian. I'm just going to say that right now. She can speak Spanish, French, fucking a bit of Italian, Dutch. Yeah, she's mega. The problem is some of the best players in the world are not only very, very quiet or don't speak English, but even more so, the thing Heku has that makes her OP is she quite literally understands their culture too. So she knows what sort of a person they are. She already knows the behind the scenes. She knows who might joke a bit, who actually is a bit more serious. She can also relate like cultural things that they might mean by what they say. How many times have we all read a Telegram message and then someone says, that's not really what that means to Russians though. That's not, you have that happen a million times. So she's also another one I think would be a great hire, especially because, by the way, it doesn't have to be her or Shox. Can it be her and Shox? There's not a way we can make that work, And then she does handle the Russian interviews, then Shox does the other, whatever way you want to do it. And then the last one I'm going to throw out there is, I'm sorry, I do absolutely think that even though I understand the casting part, in theory on the casting, they've got all the best casters. They're all the ones that you all want, all the duos. I understand that Anders has fucked his duo up. I'm very well aware of that, not least because I remember the person he tried to cast with at the beginning of last year and how hilarious that was. That was obviously awkward for all of us, wasn't it? Also, former guest of the show. Look it up if you want the trivia and the law on that one. But obviously Anders' problem is he doesn't have a big duo right now, does he? And he doesn't have like the main thing. With that said, again, if I think to myself, you are holding a world championship of Counter-Strike. In this case, by the way, you've even picked what I think is the most iconic Counter-Strike venue, the Lanxess, the Cathedral of Counter-Strike. Well, listen, I'm the one who gave him this alias. I think it's a fucking banger moniker. Anders is the voice of Counter-Strike. When you think of Counter-Strike iconic moments, you think of Anders in human reactions. Yeah, what are you doing? So, to me, again, like the Maui example, I'm not saying put him on the final. I'm not saying kick off some other duo. Can he be at the event in some context? Can he do one game? Can I get like one game in the group stage where, I don't know, even pick some older players where I see Anders do a cast? Because to me, that's why I put it as ugly. Beyond, I think the Hecker ones are pretty good. I also think Maui's just, that is just a snob in my opinion. So I think it's ugly. I didn't put it as bad because I do think there's some excellent people here. I think most of the people here are very good at their job, and a lot of them, I think, even if I wouldn't hire them, are totally legitimate hires, and ESL's welcome at their choices. Austin, what do you think of the hires as a completely neutral, totally objective individual on this show?
Well, I just now looked at them because I didn't realize they got announced. And yeah, no, this is kind of crazy. You know, there's something that I can appreciate about them having like ex-pros on the desk, but I've never found them well-spoken, in my opinion. I feel like there are people that are so much better at explaining what's like happening,
yes,
rather than pro players who know what's happening and better, but they can't explain it in words. Yes. So I think not having Maui is insane. But also, isn't the major like 3 weeks? Why? You're right. Why can't they have all of these people? Like, there's 3 weeks of CS to cover. Like, you can put so many people, and you can have an entire different desk every week. You could it just never makes any sense. And yes, of course, I agree. Anders should be there, but without having a duo, it's kind of awkward. How do you fit him in? But again, 3 weeks, we could find time to put him in. We could find time to swap him in with some random person. I'm sure somebody would take a game off in the group stage.
Yes.
Yeah. Not the biggest fan of this.
This is always a difficult one because it puts me in a tough position, I think, because I'm not trying to ever gloat too hard on these, but I also understand that I think it. Okay, I'll put out some objective stuff to try to before.
I mean, I assume you also don't want to feel entitled, like you don't demand you get the events. You don't want people to get that sense, right?
Yeah. Okay. So to be objective, so I haven't been hired for an ESL event since 2024 Katowice. I'll come back to that. I'll wrap back to that. But I'll just say, with the other TOs that I've worked with, which have been Blast, PGL, and Star Ladder for that major, I have worked every single grand final for all of them. Like I've worked, I think, 20 grand finals in a row now. So for all of the other TOs in the space, and that's including a Star Ladder TO that didn't hire me at first for the playoffs, but then through what I did at the group stage, they realized they need me for the playoffs. And then I was included for the grand final. So, yeah, I think that the other TOs thankfully acknowledge my ability on these kinds of events. And I get that there's different flavors. And I understand that ESL moved away from me. And I think some people are probably wondering why that is. And so I'll give you what I know. Because I've poked around. I've asked people before, why do I not get hired for ESL events? Because in other ways, they are, I'd say, cordial to me. They let me co-stream their events. But I messaged in 2025 a couple parties, and I got no response. I got completely left out to dry. For whatever reason, I am persona non grata with ESL. But what I can say definitively is that in 2024, talked to Carmack, one of the VPs of product, been one of the faces of ESL in some ways on the production side for a very long time, because I could tell I was on the outs with ESL. So in 2024, because the event that I had worked, because I was in like 22, 23, I was getting hired for pro leagues, Atlanta or Dallas, like Cologne, Katowice. I was getting hired for all the ESL events that anybody would want to work, maybe with the exception of like one random IEM per year. And so when I could tell that I was getting less events, I asked Carmack, I was like, what's going on? Why am I not getting hired for these for ESL events anymore? Like, I can tell I'm on the out. And he told me directly to my face that we consider Reddit greatly in hiring decisions here at ESL. And I was just like,
for me, that's like ESL's wildcard chat GPT moment for me. It's like, what do you mean, Reddit? They're all idiots. Anyway, but please upload the thread. Anyway.
Yeah. And obviously, because I have a little bit more of a polarizing personality, and I have more, I have more opinionated takes than a lot of people, and I make news cycles because of them. I'll get lovers, I'll get haters, I'll get people that just think that, they'll put a caricature of me out there. But if you listen to me on the desk, I bring in a lot of, I actually, before, I'll say minimum preparation before every single series to this day, I watch at least 2 maps of play of both teams, and I actually watch the VODs. I'm not watching Shadow or Skybox Edge and looking at a radar. I actually watch the games back because I want to see recent form of these teams, the styles that they play on what I assume are going to be their picks in the upcoming series. I'm not just looking at the stats, and I bring that into every pregame segment along with some of the takes that people like or they don't like, along with some of the entertainment value. I also always try, when I am next to somebody, think about their strengths. If I'm next to Yanko, what do I think he's going to bring into this death segment? If I'm next to Pimp, how do I think he's going to carry on in this segment? If I'm next to Dust, I know that he's going to be a little bit more focused on this. So what I try to do is I try to pad out the other parts of the segment that I think are necessary in order to have a complete segment. I do it every single time. I always consider who my co-analyst is every single time.
Which is quite rare, by the way. If people don't know, most people are just doing their thing, right? And everyone just, you hope it fits together. That's more the host thinks of that, right?
And also, I will, and okay, so those are just things that I prepare. Yeah. I know, like, with utter certainty, I am the only analyst that is still watching POV demos on a very regular basis. I'm still loading up before some of these, like, I'll watch those 2 maps of play, but then I see that this guy's been playing well. Okay, let me see why he's playing well also on an individual level, because I can't see that from a VOD. Nobody looked back at this stuff. So it's like, what is it about is it his crosshair placement, his positioning, his rotations? Yes. Is he setting himself up with utility? Is he playing off teammates well? Or do I think he's baity? And that's sometimes where the hot takes people don't like come from. I'm he's had a really good rating at this event, but he is viciously baiting every time I watch this guy play on the T side. So yeah, and that's where you get different types of takes. So that's just me on this one. I mean, if I look at the other analysts on this one, because if you're going to put somebody in, you got to take somebody out. I think that a couple of these guys have absolutely earned their positions. And I think that I think that Ash is a guy that has proven a lot with his YouTube videos. I think he's proven a lot in interviews, podcasts, even on this show. I think that I'll just say it is a bit of a questionable decision because he's never worked a broadcast before. And it's the World Championship of Counter-Strike. Yes. It's gonna have the biggest audience ever. And like we thought JL was an amicable figure, amiable. Certainly. That he has a huge personality. But unfortunately, sometimes when they go on to these kinds of segments, it's different. Live broadcast is different. You don't get a do-over. And that's what Ash is known for right now, his YouTube. His YouTube is where he gets to go over and over and over again on a take if he didn't like the first one. But having a live take be as succinct and to the point as possible, that's just a skill that it needs to be built up. Also, little skills that need to be built up, which are difficult for everybody still to this day. It's like getting speech jammed in the middle of a conversation. Yeah. Like knowing how to deal with that, knowing when a graphic doesn't show up or whatever, how to style out of it. Those kind of aspects are ways where the analyst gig is always going to be underrated because it's not it's the gig that most people are going to the bathroom for, like they're getting some snacks for. It's whatever. I don't expect it to be revered as much as casters, and I think that's why casters rightfully get a lot of the glory in this space. But it's a role that I've made it my craft. You can hate my opinion, but I think downplaying my ability as an on-air broadcast analyst is, to me, insulting to the gig.
I'll also just say as well, because I didn't reference something on the other one, obviously, if you look at the analysts specifically, which is my area that I've also done a lot of work, I will say this, right? Obviously, it goes without saying, I'm totally fine with like Pimp's there, but he's also there as a presenter as well, but he's there, he's obviously very good. Yanko's a slam dunk, there's another high you do immediately, in my opinion. The problem I have is this, you notice I haven't been unreasonable. Like, for example, when I made a separate video about who you can hire as analyst, I said people like Vu. I'm also for the same ash reason, not saying put Vu on there, he hasn't done many events yet. Like, I do think the majors, you have to, as you say, Maui, it's not about if you're good at your job. It's like, if we haven't seen you sort of in the foxhole, as it were, we don't know how you'll respond. I mean, some of the things Maui was saying there, if people don't know, speech jamming is basically where, as you're talking, there's some sort of like a sound interference in your ears. Well, actually, believe it or not, a lot of people, if they can hear themselves, that's why you have it looped through the headphones, what you're saying. If that's like delayed, or there's a reverb, or there's another sound coming in, a lot of people, the reason it's a jam effect is they won't be able to talk. It will make them, like, as they'll start to form a thought, they'll be thinking like, what's that sound though? Oh, fuck, I can't hear myself. Am I actually live right now? There's a million, these are like simple things, but if you're a pro, you would be amazed how many pros can just handle that. They're just like the guy where they're not fazed by it. Even though I've had some outrageous ones where there was just static in my ears. I'm still making the point, even though part of me is wanting to just go, get the fucking over here. But I normally only do that comedically. And actually, secretly, I just do it eventually when it pisses me off. But the first 5 times I didn't do that, believe it or not. I was pretending to you like it was all a great sound setup. Also, similarly, I agree on the Ash one. Ash could one day be an excellent analyst if he chooses to commit to this and he wants to do it. The problem, a bit like the one with Ted at the last major, was you can't just throw someone in there out of nowhere. Like, in that analogy, you've gone from doing no big lands to maybe the biggest land ever. Like, that is a crazy gamble. Look, the Dupree one, people just know it's just a preference. They just don't like him particularly. I actually think the Stico High is a very good one. The Stico High is how it should be done. He has done some events. He's gradually being worked in. He's shown he's got the temperament for it, the skills, and now he's earned his spot at the column. That's totally fine. I'm fine with that one. It's just, again, for me, I can take at least one of these names off and just put Maui on there. And as I say for the others, I think they're just excellent hires. Like, you want Anders involved somehow. By the way, for yourself as much as the rest of the game. He's a legend of the game. He's done like every bloody major, I think, except for a couple at the beginning. And then Maui's just doing a good job anyway, and so it's all good. Right.
One thing I'll say.
Go on.
One thing I'll say, just as a self plug, of course.
Yeah.
If you want more of me at the major, I'll be co-streaming the whole thing. And the thing is, with the ESL rules, I gotta watch the desk. We gotta leave it on. It's
True.
part of the rules.
True.
And the thing is, if people watch what I did at Krakow, I watch that desk more intently than anybody does. So if you want to see me analyzing every aspect of the broadcast, you know where to find me.
Exactly. Now, if I find you there and I choose to listen to you, how could I enhance my listening experience?
Right. Why wouldn't you then, Thorin, listen with our sponsor? Because this message is sponsored by Raycon, and you can check out their essential open earbuds, which would be great. Imagine this. You're watching my stream, you're on your PC at home, but then you got to go run some errands. But you don't want to actually get tripped up by the fact that there's a lot of traffic in your area. So what would you use? Raycon's essential open earbuds. So you can hear what I'm saying on my stream as I'm praising the desk or critiquing it at the upcoming Cologne Major. So they've become great for, I'd say for me, for just walking in nature. I feel like it's not quite as a high strung for me nowadays, walking in like a big city or something like that, where I still would want to hear traffic around me. But also nowadays, I just like to hear the sounds of birds. In fact, I've gotten more into birding, where it's been great to listen with Raycon's essential open earbuds. So you can go to their website with buyraycon.com/snakeopen to get 15% off. They do have a 30-day money back guarantee if you do not like them. So it's practically risk-free. So you can just check them out there. So be sure to check them out. Thanks again, Raycon, for sponsoring.
I even just Googled it. It actually is called birding. But like in England, we call it bird watching. Apparently birding is the real. Now, I thought for real he was just like making that up. Like, I enjoy birdage, like just making up fucking words. What a mad angle, like you're into birding. Now, by the way, of course he is. If you don't know
there's
Austin.
So many good birds to see.
Right.
There's so
One
many
thing I appreciate about
Maui
Maui is because he's older in his life, he isn't actually like 22. He isn't just doing weird shit as like an affectation for his personality to like get girls in school or something. He's actually just into weird shit. Like I've told this story before. When we were doing Flashpoint like 6 years ago, Maui was telling us all how he's getting really into cinema, right? And I was thinking, brilliant. Like I'm someone that, as people know on Lads 3 Nation, I do a movie review show. I've watched a bazillion movies because I'm an old guy. And obviously I've had loads of free time in my schedule where I can watch every movie under the sun. So I was thinking, right, I'm going to be able to chop it up with him. What do you think of this film from like the late 70s? What do you think is one in the 90s? And he's told me, no joke, he was like, well, I'm sort of going in chronological order. By the way, already an absurd premise, right? And I remember thinking, what does that mean though? And he ready? At the time, he was still on movies. This is not even a meme, Austin. He was still only in the 1940s. So it's like, by his logic, it's like, I'll see you in like 5 years, then we can talk about like the 80s. So you don't still do that, do you? But because if people don't know, anything Maui does, he just goes right into his niche, don't you? Same with food. You're into the weirdest fucking gourmet quiz. Like the joke is, I couldn't even eat half the food Maui eats. He's in the maddest shit.
Probably true. It's probably true. Yeah, I did try fermented horse milk in Kazakhstan. Actually, it was crazy. That
sounds like the one thing I would not want to try in Kazakhstan, Maui. That sounds like the thing that would give me the shits. Like I'd be so scared to even drink it, bro. I'd be so scared.
It's for anybody that's curious, that's listening. It's kind of like if you combined makgeolli, which is kind of like a fermented
that's quite nice
beverage.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
Yeah, that's the only nice part about it.
Right.
The bad part is that it's sour and also smoky. So it's like sour, smoky, milky, and lightly carbonated alcohol. And it's only like, the problem with this is that it'd probably bang if it was like 40% alcohol, so you can at least like take a shot and get, but it's like 3% alcohol. So you're not even getting any remote buzz off of it. You're just drinking it for the love of the game. Like,
so it very much is an acquired
to
taste then. Okay.
Yeah, it's totally an acquired taste. Yeah, for movies and stuff. No, I don't do that as much anymore. But I did watch like all of Chaplin's films and like
see what I mean?
Renoir and like Fritz Lang. I watched so many other films. Yeah, so
because it's the idea that I'm like, where do you think of Goodfellas? Like Goodfellas. I'm not familiar with the Goodfellas. I'm still on silent Italian films from the 30s. Yeah, I know, but you were making the caricature so ridiculous. Anyway,
yes, I know. Yeah.
Anyway, if we now continue on. Speaking of things that are good, we will not be talking about silent Italian films from the 1930s. We'll be talking about CS. So, Austin, what is good right now?
Well, I think for my good point I have, Frozen needs to be saved. I'm surprised that this FaZe project is even still kicking. I mean, I know that they don't have anything to do until the next major cycle really kicks up, but I am very interested to see where Frozen will end up, because it is insane to me how hard he's carrying FaZe, and they are pretty much doing nothing. Like, his stats would immediately jump off the page for any team. Like, I'm talking any team. Like, he could be on Mouse tomorrow if he wanted to be. He could be on Navi tomorrow if he wanted to be. He just needs to get off of this team. And I honestly, I feel so bad for him, because he's been sold on a dream. He joined FaZe. They did so good right away, and then things started to fall apart. Brokey was trash, and then they cut Rain, and then karrigan is now bailed on him. And yeah, it's just, I really am looking forward to the next part of his career. This is kind of where I'm at. And also, I'm really curious what happens to FaZe after he's gone, because there's surely no way he's riding FaZe till the wheels fall off. I don't believe that.
Yeah, Frozen's really. I'll just say one of the ways that I was almost disheartened by starting to do my own consistent top 20 player list and consistently updating it is how I wanted to be this purveyor for individual brilliance, where I look at any player regardless of the team situation that they're in and just try to objectively say, are they a top player? And I think right now, if you ask me to name who are today the top 20 players in the world, it's different than my top 20 list for the year thus far. Because Frozen, to me, is one of the 20 best Counter-Strike players in the world. But the problem with it, and with making that list that I have been making, is that context does matter, and I think the stage that you're on does matter. And Frozen has unfortunately just not gotten the chances to prove himself, despite the fact that I fully hold the belief that he is one of the 20 best Counter-Strike players today. If you load him up in a server, regardless of the roster they're on, I think he would frag harder than the 100+ other tier 1 pros that he's fighting amongst. But because he doesn't get that chance with this iteration of FaZe, I can't put him in. I can't just put him in the list because I like the guy, because then that would just kind of break the list, and then I'd have to start also considering all these other guys that are playing only tier 2 events, and then I feel like my list is just so narrow in scope when I want it to be as comprehensive as I possibly can. I predicted also at the beginning of the year that Frozen would be one of the 5 best players this year, but I just have no justification for putting him there other than just purely watching FaZe games, seeing how hard he carries them, how consistent he is, how he is also, I hate that he developed some like baiter sort of title when I was watching him back on Maus. He was so aggressive early on with them, how he's shown such versatility over the years when he needs to change up his style in the middle of the round to try to win it. But I wouldn't even blame him this year. I haven't watched FaZe as closely in the last tournament or two because they just haven't been on my radar, but I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of looks a little bit more baity-ish because he's just trying to keep himself afloat right now. So yeah, I would love to see him. And yeah, I'll just be real. If I were to replace anybody right now, the prime suspect for me probably is somebody like Ema, or maybe even somebody like Tessus on Falcons, if I'm trying to be more objective. As much as I like Tessus, I just think that Frozen would be a spot-on replacement.
That could be the final star player. You never know.
Exactly.
By the way, I'll even give you my angle on this one, which is this. I actually do think that it's not just because of that rumour everyone heard that of like maybe he could have gone to Na'Vi last year, which at the time would have been a sexy move for both parties. It was before they had Bakasis, before they'd levelled up. You know, they needed a star player. At the time, you could already see FaZe was like at a minimum dysfunctional, if not on the way down with diminishing result. And he was the best player in the team. He was still the stable piece in the team that held them together. In fact, I always tell people, when you watch that crazy-ass Budapest Major run, about fucking 75% of it's just Frozen, by the way. He just has to frag out of his fucking mind to even get... He's the reason they were even in those games. They almost lost in stage 1. Like, I think in that famous nuke game where the history guy didn't defuse them all, I think that's the one where Frozen has to drop like a 40 bomb or something insane like that to like win them this match. Like, it's absurd, the shit there. Like, essentially, he at one point in time was the one reliable player in FaZe. And even though, yes, he dropped off a bit this year, that's in the context that the entire team, everyone went to shit. Remember, by the end, karrigan couldn't get a call off in the game. They couldn't win a T-side against anyone. Twist's game even dropped off after being one of the best players in the world last year. Like, everyone across the board just went to shit. Droki was still bad. Jacob came in and got even worse, if anything. So I think, actually, he's one of the few players I don't blame in FaZe. I even think, actually, some of his own numbers falling off this year is because in the context of his style of play, beyond when he's on CT side, and he certainly does have some CT spots, his style on T side, I know what Maui means. He's never been the beta. Like, here's the difference. You actually could find times where Rops himself would even admit he overbaited at times, or, you know, he went a bit too far trying to, like, read the matrix of some timing. Like, Frozen was never even that much of, like, a super lurker player. He's a lurker, but, like, for example, as Maui often point out, when he played with the Liege, he would trade for a Liege all the time. He was really good at it, by the way. Like, he was a very consistent and, like, stable player that you could rely on to bait but get the kill. I always say, if you get the kill and then you do something with it, it's not a bait, is it? Bait is when someone uses you as bait and then they waste it and you just think, why did you bait me in that scenario? Essentially, trade fragging is what we call it when you successfully do it. And he was really good at it. Right, here's the obvious question, guys. Who's he trading for in this team? In the last version, without twists, it was unironically karrigan, who was literally just dead meat being thrown out in front of a bunch of dogs, or Jacob, who's mega inexperienced, is probably shitting his pants half the time because he knows the whole world's watching him fail and not be fucking some star player like a Liege. So I think if you look at it, I don't blame Frozen even for the drop-off this year. I think it's really harsh. And I even look at his career. Mate, he was dynamite in Maus when Rops left. He was good in the FaZe when Rops himself was still in the team. And then he was good with the Liege, and he's even been good with Jigga. Mate, he's been good with everyone. This player is one of the most blameless players in Pro Counter-Strike. And I'm with you guys. He also would be dynamite in a whole bunch of different teams, I think. He also, notice as well, I tell you what, for a star player, everyone loves to say this about Ziwu all the time, but as far as I can tell, it's just because they don't know French, he doesn't do interviews. Frozen's the real humble goat. What are we talking about? He's also never given any indication he's a dickhead or arrogant. In fact, he actually seems a very, very sort of like level-headed star player. Again, I'll say this for the millionth time. If I had skills like someone like this, I'd be cocky as fuck, mate. So I've always understood why the configs of the world thought they were the shit. Actually, he seems like a very good teammate too. You notice everyone seems to love him in all the teams they play. And I've got one last detail I'll tell you, which is this. It's actually a point I've made on an upcoming different show I was on, but I'll make it here as well. I'll tell you what I think is really, really interesting, guys. It's the comments people make in interviews, but in the context of what happened just before. So I'll give you an example. When karrigan left, everyone immediately stalked the drama fires, didn't they? They were all like, "Oh, I've heard he just left without even telling them." And then Twist was like, "What the hell? This wasn't expected." And then there was even those remarks where people were like, "He's betrayed Frozen and Twists. He's a traitor." They only stayed for karrigan, right? At the time, that was even maybe mildly sexed up by the remaining FaZe players like Twists and Frozen. Because remember, at the first event, the Blast Rivals, were me and Austin with that, they actually had some mad overperformance. It looked like maybe there is life after karrigan. So at that moment, the whole take was like, "Oh, they don't like that he left the team." Then after that, when they went to IEM Atlanta right afterwards and were dog shit and bombed the event completely, there was an interview. Here's the headline on HLTV. It goes, "Frozen. With the results that we showed, I feel like anyone with a Falcons offer would have left." Well, isn't that convenient? Yeah. Do you know what? There's a two-pronged element to this, boys. One, yeah, that's when you come back down to earth. You regress to the mean and you realise, yeah, actually, you know what? This team is a fucking shit show. And actually, I'm not surprised enough. But I'll tell you what else, and this is why I brought it up, Austin. That feels to me like you're also doing what in movies is called foreshadowing. What you're laying the groundwork for is, maybe he is just going to leave after this major. Like what? And by the way, if I had to retranslate that statement, here's how I would take that statement. I would take a Falcons type offer tomorrow. Is there any more Falcons type offers out there? You know what? Actually, me, and I don't want to say it, but me and Twists, we're both sort of now rethinking those Falcons type. I think they both were. If you could say it tomorrow, look, maybe in Twist's case, he said he specifically wouldn't join Falcons, but if you told Twist you could join G2 or Mouse tomorrow, I think he'd say yes. I imagine if Frozen did have the Na'Vi or the Falcons on, why wouldn't he say yes? Like, low key, I also think essentially, at the end of my point, I think they also agree with you, Austin. I think he even knows himself, like, this isn't you're probably not going to play 5 more years in FaZe and become a FaZe legend, are you? Hopefully at this point you get airlifted like karrigan did to a better team and now you can just win. I think that'll be better for everyone.
Here's the insane thing. I mean, Frozen's been on FaZe for a little over 2 years now, and they've only won 1 trophy.
It's mad, isn't it?
Like only 1 trophy, and he's been insane the entire time. Not only that, he got 10th best player in 2024 and 8th last year. No trophies last year, and he's still playing so good. It's just such a sad place for his career to be at right now. I mean, he's still young; he's got plenty of time. But like, man, I really am waiting for that part where he goes into being like one of the best riflers of all time. I'm just ready for it.
Also, remember. Here's what's brutal, dude. The context is even sicker for him in light of what we had that discussion about the siuhy one. He left Mouse when Mouse used to be seen as like, well, that'll only be like a 5th to 8th team at the major. You'll never win the major with them. He joined FaZe like, finally, time to win all the trophies. And then the joke is Mouse has won more trophies without him. He won that 1 0 Chengdu. They won those pro leagues with Maui then. They won the PGL with fucking... It's ridiculous. Like, he didn't even get... Not only did he not get to win with FaZe, his ex-team, who, by the way, he's still better than nearly all those players, they got to win shit without him and even go deeper at majors sometimes. Oh, it's gross, isn't it? I know. I actually feel bad sorry for him. He's one, like I say, genuinely, I don't blame this player at all for any of the shit that happened in FaZe. I think he did the best job he could, mate.
You can't blame him. I mean, look at all the players that he's had next to him since like the last year started. He had Simple on his team at one point, and still like the FaZe. I don't know if it was FaZe or whoever, but they couldn't like lock it in and give them a solid roster to play with the entirety of last year, and they ended up cutting Rain. Like, oh my god, it was so bad. I'm just ready. Like, it's over. Just get rid of Frozen. Go save yourself, man. Please, I'm begging you.
Put it this way, that's the one. Here's the final joke I'll say, we'll move on. That's one of the ones where in the modern social media meta, the real dream is this. I won't say whether they do or do not. This is a purely hypothetical, alternate reality version. All names and likenesses are purely coincidental. Anyway, the joke is this. This is the sort of take where even though in theory it should be edgy because we're saying he should leave the team or, what FaZe is shit. Well, this is one of those takes where if you do a tweet in the modern day, the player themselves, because likes aren't visible, might even just like the tweet. Just be like, yeah, basically I agree, get me the fuck out, but I can't say it publicly. I think low-key Frozen actually just agrees with this boy's hence that interview statement, which certainly seemed ominous. Okay,
he would like
let's move on.
Cry for help.
So Maui, what is your good point?
Well, I guess I'll keep on theme with us on some of the talent stuff, because it was one of the bigger news bits that came out in the last, I guess, 48 hours. Scrawny mentioned the fact when he quote tweeted the talent announcement that all of the 4 caster pairs are going to be in the Lanxess for at least a match. And I think people probably read that like, what? Isn't that always the case? But in fact, it hasn't. In Budapest for the Star Ladder Major, the other two caster pairs went home. It was Scrawny and Launders and Machine Sponge that did all 7 of the playoffs. And for the Austin Major, if I'm correct, I saw that it was 3 of the pairs. I think Anders and DDK didn't do the playoffs for that one, if I'm pretty sure.
That makes sense.
But Harry, Hugo, and then the 2 aforementioned pairs were there. But then Shanghai, for the Perfect World one, it was Scrawny and Launders and Machine and Sponge. Actually, that major was a little bit weird if people don't know. For broadcast talent, we the desk and all the casters were in Bucharest for the Shanghai Major. So we're in Romania doing it. But for the playoffs, it was Scrawny, Launders, and Machine and Sponge got sent over. They flew to Shanghai to cast the 7 playoff games. So again, you kind of see the snubbing of a couple of the duos that, you work it and everything like that. It feels great, but then you don't actually get to do the playoffs. It's a little bit of a, that's kind of the payoff for people that don't know that are at home. That really is the payoff. Like the arena games are where the biggest moments are made. Like you can even have great lines it's very rare that you see, unless the highlight is just world class, one of the best things we see all year. You don't really remember those kinds of moments. It is the arena games where, like, for example, even thinking back to Budapest, people don't remember the twist Deagle shots on Inferno if that's not in the playoffs. Like that's a cool round, but the gravitas of the moment is what elevates that to be something that many people wanted it to be the highlight of the year. And yeah, so the stakes and the stage matter. But so I'd say for the arena part, to me, a lot of casting, I can have my favorites. I don't think that there is an objective list of best versus worst exactly, but I'm glad that everybody will get a little bit of their favorites there because people are very tied to their favorite caster pairs. Yeah. It's one of the greatest aspects we have in Counter-Strike compared to some other esports is that, I'll just be real, I've listened to some Riot broadcasts. I don't think all of their casters are that good. I think that's why co-streaming has popped off in those spaces so much more, because what is this guy saying? Like, I literally am listening to like, this person does, I don't think these people always know what they're talking about, but Counter-Strike, you got a blend of guys that do know what they're talking about. They are great in the play-by-play aspects, and it's not that Counter-Strike is honestly rocket science. Like, it's great when a color commentator can break down or introduce something new to the table, explaining a macro element to the game, something that's new in the meta, like Sponge will bring up, a new smoke that he's seeing for the first time this tournament. That's all great, but it doesn't, actually, I would say that the bar is not insanely, it's just the game. It's just the game doesn't always lend itself to having crazy breakdown moments. So sometimes the main broadcast is the best way to consume it. And I'll say that as somebody that frequently co-streams, because our caster pairs are elite. They're so good. So people can just tune into them. And I'm just glad that what I would assume, in the face of Moses and Dinko not getting, I don't think that this pair has ever gotten a major playoff as a duo, which seems crazy because they've been around now together casting for upwards of 2 years. So I'm just glad that everybody gets a shot.
What do you think, Austin?
Yeah. I mean, it's how it's always should have been. I mean, you're right when you say that the casters are, people get attached to their favorite casters. Not a lot of people know, but when I first started watching Counter-Strike back in 2017, I watched way before I played. I would only watch games if my favorite casters were playing. Or casting, I should say. And I would watch any game. It didn't matter if I was interested in the game or the teams. I would watch any game because I love the way that they casted. So much so that when I actually started playing, I wanted to be a caster. Some of my first streams were me casting games because I wanted to do it so bad. And I remember going to my first event and my favorite casters weren't casting. They did the studio stage and I was like, I can't wait to hear them in the arena. And then they weren't there. And I was like, oh, wait, that sucks. But it wasn't a major either. So I can only imagine how devastating it would be to go to a major and as a caster, not get to cast in the arena, but as a fan as well, like not getting to hear them in the arena is just, it's very sad. And it definitely would diminish the experience of what you're going to see. So I'm really glad to hear that they're all getting at least one game. It's how it should have always been, in my opinion.
Yeah, the other thing I would say as well is this. Like, first of all, this is actually not, like Maui made the case there of using past examples. People might just assume, isn't this how it always was? But no, I'll give you an example. It's only something like a month or 2 months ago, I did my reflections interview with Scott. I think it was a month ago. And in my reflections interview, I actually congratulate him because I make the question that during the period, if people don't know, he didn't do his first major until, I think it was Antwerp 2022, mate. Like, he had to wait many, many years because he was also one of the people obviously then he had COVID as well. So, right, I made the point to him, like, congrats though, because you're on a streak now where ever since you got your foot in the door though, you'd done every major. I think you'd done like 7 in a row. And he even told me on this interview something along the lines of like, yeah, but that might actually, essentially, like, even though I might get hired to do I Am Cologne Major, the streak of doing like a playoff match though might end at this major because I'm obviously not like ESL's set of casters, you know, and it's more limited which events we. So actually, that implies to me he was even sort of like softening people up for the idea maybe you'll only see me in the group play and maybe I won't be on the playoffs, which I do think, by the way, to tie into my topic about hiring people, I do think that'd be a travesty. Because again, you can have your own choices. Obviously, if you look historically, ESL has favoured, obviously their boys literally a sponge and machine, but in COVID they favoured Harry and Hugo, that was their online duo, and then more recently, Moses has always been an ESL guy, so obviously they've essentially got 3 other duos, and then they've got the blast duo of Scrawny and Launders that they have to work in there. Again, it is your event, so you can choose who does the final and who does the biggest events. But I think if you're people like Scrawny and Launders, you're like Maui, you're elite at what you do. You at the minimum have to, one, be on the event, and in my opinion, give them like one playoff match at least, you know, hopefully a good one in their case even because they're excellent at casting. So no, I think it's a very valid point. And even when you go to the lesser known duos, obviously Moses and Dinko, listen, you can have whatever thoughts you like about Dinko. Moses is fucking excellent and always has been. He's not only one of the most, I think, naturally likable people to ever be on camera. Also, if you ever listen to him, I actually myself underestimated Moses because essentially I don't think his skill set was as good on the desk. Like when he was on the desk, sometimes he was just like filling in here and there or being the straight man if I make a joke or something, you know. Whenever I heard him as a caster, he actually has he's actually underrated. Everyone just gives Chad all the plaudits, who was excellent. Moses is mega too. Like Moses also is really good at like making evaluations of what people should and shouldn't do, or do they like fuck up this element of their game. I think he's fabulous. And so I know Dinko's more of a newer talent, but I think that duo actually has real potential, and also they've done quite a few events also, so they're on the grind, and I think this is the point where they deserve the call up. So no, I like the idea that no one gets that bullshit thing you're saying, Maui, because I always think there's 2 positions that are whack in broadcast talent. One is the harshest of all, which is you're actually the B stream guy who does it remotely, because that's the worst one, because then people message you or put a message on Twitter, oh wow, congrats, like enjoy China or whatever, and you're like, well, I'm actually just going to be at home in my bedroom, but okay, yeah, I would love to go to China, but that's already awkward. But then the more awkward one is the one that all these guys used to be in the position of, which is like I was saying, there were events back in the day where you would go and you cast the group stage, and then the rest of us that work the whole event are like, oh, can't wait for the playoffs, and then they're like, well, I'm actually just packing my bag and I'm going today, actually. I'll be watching it from home, and you're like, yeah, that also sucks for you, because like I was saying, you don't really feel like you fully worked the event. If someone say, like, I'll give you the obvious example, if this event was the Boston Major, and someone goes, oh, wow, you worked that event, the final must have been amazing, well, you can't then go, I was at home in my bedroom like that. You never really got to feel what the most important part of that tournament you never got to be a part of. You were watching like the rest of us. So I agree. I think it's not even a particularly nuanced point. I think it's just a slam dunk. Yeah, great job. I'm glad at this event that could be the best major ever, we get all the best castings. You always get at least a playoff game. And also, it's also an event where if you look at the teams and the fucking crowd, very good chance, even if you get the worst game on paper, it could still be an excellent game to watch, and the crowd will respond appropriately. So I'm glad everyone gets their moment in the arena. I think everyone's deserved it. Yeah. Okay. For my good point, I've actually picked a really topical one, but I also thought, because in the modern day, look, Valve themselves did it, Austin. There is no North America anymore. It's the Americas. It's just we combine 2 continents together now. We're just pretending actually, it doesn't matter. As long as, you know what, like the joke would be, there was actually a gag like this one time. I'll give you a quick side story. There was once a Canadian battle rapper that when battle rap was getting big, unsurprisingly, Canada wasn't like the central point. It was places like, you know, LA or New York or whatever. And when this guy would come to the American events, he would always big up the idea of like, you know, I'm Canadian, but I ain't whack, bro. And then all the Canadians would be like, why'd you say that though, mate? Like, what the fuck? We're not whack either. Like, and so the joke someone made to diss this guy was, they said that like, if you talk to this guy outside of Canada, then he just goes, look, I'm North American, let's leave it at that. Like, I feel like North American pros are like, look, we're Americas. It doesn't, let's not quibble about if we're from Canada or you. Look, we're all just the Americas. And I tell you what, I love that case around. You're like, wait a minute, aren't you from like LA or something? But anyway, so my joke is this. I actually think in the modern day, we have to celebrate all the good Americas teams, not just go on about M80 or whatever all the time. So, bro, actually, if you look at the recent performance, in contrast to the Falcons karrigan discussion, mad props to Legacy, bro. Like, I did not think this team had this ceiling. In fact, also, people might not even have lost against Falcons too, but like, I would have thought this team at best would be similar to the old Legacy. It would be a team that, like, you know, they could maybe make the odd playoff, and even then I'm not going to favour them to win. You look at their team, I actually many times have looked at their team and thought a bit like the Frozen thing. Can we just get Lato to a better team? Like, this guy's a stud, man. Why is he in this team? I'll tell you what, I'm actually gradually, as I watch them play these last couple of events, this is actually a real team again. They actually, even though I also wondered when they kicked Lux and they made that change, is that the right move? Wasn't he the guy that got you to that level at that last major? Ooh, Art, mate, he was kicked out of Fury for a reason. Isn't he kind of like a bit washed as an IGL? Also, he'd completely lost his style, if you remember. He'd gone way too deep into, like, he'd been doing AWPing and weird shit like that. He'd also lost that super cool Yikindar-esque, like, Chaos Agent T-style of player that used to be Sword Soap. So a part of me would have thought, this is a bad pickup, actually, mate. This is someone like you picked up a washed guy off name value and you've attached him to young stars. Mate, Art's actually doing a pretty good job in this team, I've got to say. It looks like he genuinely's turned his style around. He's not playing purely gimmicky CS either. They're a better squad, and actually now, they're a pretty good team. Like, they're a top 10 team now, if people don't know. They've sort of earned that status. So I'm just putting it as my good legacy, like, fair play. If you think about it, the last major after that one, I'm supposed to think, like, this team will never do anything. They were a flash in the pan. They actually look, I actually think they play some good CS now. I kind of fuck with them. What do you think, Costin? Legacy?
Well, Legacy is a team that when they were doing good in the Austin Major, I had the pleasure of scrimming versus them quite a bit because they were actually here in America. And when we scrimmed them, I did not do good. They were really a lot better than I thought they would be because, you know, you're playing Legacy instead of like the best teams in the Major, and you're like, wait, these guys are way better than the team we just played.
Right.
You know, and I remember watching their demos, especially when they had that best of one upset, you know, the big debate. Did they end Vitality streak? That best of one upset was just like they just outplayed them, like fully outplayed them. Yeah, like actually destroyed. They made it. That major was like Inferno was their best map. Like, don't mess with us on Inferno. Like, we will beat you on this map. And they had like that very traditional Brazilian style of Counter-Strike where they're just gonna send it. You know, you throw a smoke, it doesn't matter. We're spamming it. We're breaking it. We're coming through. Like, you're not going to stop our game plan. And that is very hard to play against. And it's also something that's been kind of lost a little bit with the Brazilian teams falling off a little bit. But when we do see like the Americas regions being lumped back together, they're getting a lot more spots. We get a lot more Brazilian talent instead of North American talent. You know, it's fine. They're more deserving for sure. And we get to see these kinds of teams come up that normally wouldn't even have the chance to play at a major and have the chance to get these VRS points to go to these events. And so we're seeing great things. And I agree with you. When I saw Art join the team, I was like, that's not a good sign. I didn't believe in him, but he's completely proven me wrong. I remember playing next to Art at a Fragadelphia last year. You know, he was on Fluxo. Yeah, like he was playing behind me when I was
the
playing.
The guy went from playing like major semi-finals to he's at Fragadelphia next year. Like,
he was
hello,
at Fragadelphia.
Isn't that Art? That's so crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. And that's the thing, you know, like from seeing him there to now him winning a final against Falcons. I mean, I can only say I'm glad to see him back. He was one of my favorite players to watch back in the day on that old Furia roster that was very scary, very unpredictable player. Sometimes good, sometimes not, but very fun. And that's something that I can really appreciate having back in Counter-Strike is Legacy as a top 10 team. It's great.
I was kind of, when watching them versus Falcons, I'd say the thing that I was impressed by, because I really hadn't taken a deep dive on the art-led Legacy, is that I was pretty surprised at how clean. This sounds like maybe not the most important point for tier 1 teams, but it actually really comes into play versus a team like Falcons, is that on anti-ecos, I just feel like their plays were a lot more set and a lot less random, whereas Art before just kind of, he just did dumb shit. I'm just going to put it as it is. He just like would jump out with a Mac 10, maybe like one flash, and it's like, you didn't have to do, like, do we really need info gathering on this round? Like, we know what they have. We should know what they have. And actually, for Mirage, They never got ecoed. And that's like a map where you think the individual firepower for Falcons should probably make some of these ones pretty close, but they didn't because they would group up. They would go for more. I'd say they maybe lost a little bit of that fun art flair that was kind of a hallmark of his, but we all got kind of tired of it. Like
Yeah.
we all knew this was
Yes.
a little, it's overstayed its welcome. So to see him go for more plays that were, I'd say, ironed out, that it looks like they actually have a deep, more European playbook. That kind of stuff it's refreshing because that was easily mine. And I remember Yanko got in a huge spat with Art back in the day. That was like one of his big,
Yep.
nemesis, I guess. I thought it was fun from a distance because usually it's me getting in those, but that cleaned up. And I think that Art has had to learn the hard way that
Yes.
that fun flair that you used to bring has really very little place in actually tier 1 Counter-Strike. So, it was cool versus Falcons that they
Yes.
just didn't lose the easy ones. That it was a very competitive game, more so built on Falcons having to earn their rounds instead of just some bullshit 4v5 that was caused because Art was being a dumbass. That just didn't happen this time. And that sounds like a lot of like backhanded compliment stuff, but I'm glad to see him progress. I'm glad to see that
Absolutely.
he's just making more well-structured calls because Legacy need that. And they have good enough players that they don't have to play random rounds. If you actually use the trio of Dumao, Lado, and then Sadzin not Sadzin, I would even say Nissim as a closer, these guys can work if you give them a little space to operate with and you don't hamstring them by just immediately gifting the other team a kill.
By the way, I know what you mean about the Yanko thing. I actually referenced this also myself, which is actually that was what really worried me because actually at the time, Yanko, even though yes, he might have been a bit more spicy about it, he was totally right. Like Art was fucking up in fury at the time. So normally when players go back at you like that, when they're almost like in denial, that's the problem. You worry that they're in denial and that they're just going to be stubborn and never change. So I actually think low-key, even though he's never, I don't think publicly said as much, I think it looks like he privately did go back behind the scenes and reflect on what he'd fucked up about and go through this hard time in Flux. So he's learned his lesson. He's actually leveled up as an IGL. So props. Yeah. That's why it's just in my good section. Believe it or not, it's not a flame. I actually let Maui do all the backhanded flame there where he explained all things he didn't like about before. But it was all accurate. It was all to say how much he's grown. So anyway, let's move on now to the last section of the show, the bad section. Austin, what is bad in CS right now?
This might be an unpopular opinion, but maybe you guys might agree. I think that there's just too much pro CS going on right now. Like there is way too much going on. And I'll start with the story and then we'll look at actually the schedule. So I was in Fort Worth and then I traveled to Atlanta just a week later, and somehow I missed an entire tier 1 event in between being at both of the events that I could physically attend. I missed an event.
Sure.
That should never happen. I'm in Atlanta in the crowd and I'm checking Twitter and I'm seeing highlights from some Falcons Spirit game. Like they're not playing on stage. I'm watching Vitality and Avi. Wait, hold on. This doesn't make any sense. Like why are we all split up? And I just think that if we look at the schedule, we had, and these are all about 3 or 4 days apart. We had Rotterdam into Bucharest into Rio, and then we had the CCT finals, which doesn't really matter, and Frag 20, but they were at the same time, which took some of the tier 2 teams. And then we had just a few days later, Fort Worth, and then a few days after that, we had Astana and Atlanta at the same time, directly followed by the CIC championship that just ended a few days ago as of this recording. And now we finally have a break before the major starts. It's 8 days. That's the longest break between a notable LAN in a while. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have viewership fatigue. Like every time I load up HLTV, there's always a game. I can't even keep up with who's playing. I don't know what's happening. And this is literally my life. I watch all Counter-Strike games, all tournaments I follow, and I can't even keep up with what's going on. So I can only imagine how the players feel, because this is got to be one of the most packed sections of a CS schedule I've ever seen. And they're just going all over the place. They're playing all the time. How are you meant to prepare? The one piece of validation I'll give to what Nico said. How do they expect us to win this tournament? We didn't have time to prepare. Yeah, you still should have won. But yes, you're right. You didn't have time to prepare because you went from one tournament to another. You're playing nonstop. There's no time for practice. And then you're just going to go into the major. I just think that there's just so much, and I don't think that it's all bad. I mean, yes, it's good to have all of these different TOs, PGL, Blast, ESL as well, and now we have the Tier 2 hosts as well. We have like Draculans and Fragadelphias. All of these are very good, but they just can't agree on when is a good time to host events. We have overlap way too often, and it's just bad because it actually ruins the quality of the events. Imagine if we would have had Astana or Atlanta with all of the top teams instead of just like, oh, this one has the 2 best teams, this one has the other best teams. Like, just it's just too much.
So I made my stance clear before on this kind of stuff, and I'll try to not sway despite the fact that this is going to negatively impact me pretty greatly in the near future. I like that the viewers do get to watch what they want to. And to me, I've always likened it to just changing the channel. That if I don't really care about what's happening at this tournament, because I think the funny example was actually as Atlanta was playing, Astana playoffs were at the exact same time. I thought it was actually funny because I was working at Astana at the time. That Pain and Gamer Legion were playing a quarterfinal, and it had 8,000 viewers on Twitch. It had 8,000 viewers, and then the Fury Falcons was at the exact same time, and it had between both YouTube and Twitch combined, not including co-streams, nearly 300,000 people watching. It was pretty absurd. I think we knew in that moment which TO won. Not to say that they always do, not to say that they're always going to have it. And I like that TOs are actually now having to fight for having the best teams go to their events. It forces the TOs to level up, and hopefully not just in prize pool, but amenities too. You know, getting them into the better hotels, going to the locations that they want to go to, having a better team for management so that it's easier to interface with them. I think I'm there with you though, that I would prefer a slightly cleaner middle ground to this, where it was a bit more straightforward. I guess I would also liken it to, say, something like the NBA, like an NFL or NBA sports season for me, where it's like I can't watch physically the entire regular season. I have accepted that. I will never watch everything all at once. At times with Tier 1 CS, the fun thing is that you kind of could, because you could actually just have the blast broadcast on the entire day, start to finish, just going on in the background. You rewind with YouTube to the points that you wanted to see, or some crazy hype moment you heard the casters put on, and then you turn it off for the games that you don't care about, and you don't miss anything that you don't want to miss. But when 2 events happen at the same time, yeah, you do have to decide what you want to watch. And I think for the casual fan being catered to, this is good, because they're not going to watch everything anyways. But to the hardcore people like itself, it does make us decide. And again, bringing it up, I'll stand by it, even though to even me, it very negatively affects me, because my 2 hires primarily are Blast and PGL. They are going to have 4 overlapping events next year, so I have to decide. I haven't made that decision yet. And I think there's pros and there's cons to it. I totally see why you see it as a bad point, though, because it is a bit strange when you go to Atlanta and you want to see Spirit Falcons, and they're just not there because they're at a completely different tournament, and it's almost not even feasible to watch them.
I mean, I couldn't. I mean, I still haven't even watched Astana like fully. Like, I barely even know, apart from who won, like what happened in the group stage, and like was there any upsets? I don't know. Beyond me, because I was in Atlanta, and I think that that's just unfortunate. But yes, that last point you said is right. Like, it just diminishes the quality of Counter-Strike. Like, Atlanta's like an almost write-off tournament. As soon as it wasn't going to be Navi versus Vitality for who wins, it was like, well, who really cares at this point, right? It's a free trophy for Navi, and it's like, it shouldn't be that way. I want to be invested the whole way if I bought the ticket to go. Like, I want the actual tournament to be good, but it just wasn't because of event overlap. I think that's just negative all around the board.
I did appreciate the way he did like a Woody Allen fucking self-pitying rant there, and I live this game, this is my life. Like, I like that angle. He sold me on that. With that said, the problem is, I'm like Maui. I think it depends who you are as to whether your perspective is going to agree or disagree. Like, part of me disagrees. Here's why. Because actually, I like Maui. Maybe I don't want to watch every match. Maybe I want to pick and choose this match. And actually, you know what, this one's not good. I'll switch to this one here. And I do like the idea you can pick. The real problem is this, Austin. The area that I agree with you is as follows. I think in a perfect world, that actually, not the fucking people who run the Chinese events from BGL, in an actual ideal, theoretical best of all scenarios world, I do think what you would want is you would want all the best events to just essentially be one big circuit, but like really one circuit, as in like the top pros all just play a bit like Vitality, only these 10 events a year or whatever, 10 or 12 or whatever. But the idea is no one ever does like cheap out and go to a small LAN or skip a big one or go, sorry, I'm not pretending that The problem is this, right? At the moment, obviously, the major issue there is it's a lot easier to have one circuit if there's one tournament organised. Like, there's a reason why when Riot and Blizzard take over their esports, they don't let anyone else in the game, so they can make it like, this is the circuit, there's no overlap, all the pros play all the tournaments, and you start at this tournament and they end at this one, and you know exactly when the break is, you know exactly when there's a busy period. The problem is, that's just not what Counter-Strike is, though, is it? Because Counter-Strike is a bunch of competing TOs that are all working with it. It's like, I've made the joke on past episodes. The reason specifically why it will always be ESL and PGL who have the events where you don't have all the same teams, you have some teams, or you just have like two at the same time, is because at the moment, basically, as far as we can tell, the shenanigans that ESL plays is, they literally organise the event intentionally in a totally different continent the day after your event ends if you're PGL, because what they're trying to do is, Valve's told them, you can't tell people they can't play other events. So they go, yeah, sure, but there are these things called the laws of physics, and it takes you a certain amount of time to get to the event. So what if I just made my event so you physically couldn't get there? Oh, well, what a shame. They just sort of found a loophole to get around what Valve told you not to do. And thus far, it seems like Valve hasn't smacked them on the wrist. If anything, they've won out. People will have seen on one of those PGLs, they have their files on Sunday now, so that actually you could still, in theory, travel to another event afterwards. So there's sadly that aspect is just politics. And as usual, politics will fuck up a lot of otherwise cool things. Then you've got the other detail. This is just a very real world thing, which I can tell you right now, even if we got rid of like overlapping events, that you can't have Astana and Atlanta at the same time, I'll tell you what would be a bit of a bummer for you, mate, which is it wouldn't be that all the teams from Astana went to IEM. I can tell you what would happen right now. Some teams just wouldn't go to the event, unfortunately. Like, one of the problems here is actually very specific to you, which is you're North American. And I can tell you right now, and no, just to US, this isn't because of Orange Hitler being a fascist dictator, but at the moment, North America's become an increasingly harder place to get everyone into for an event, unfortunately. And so I can tell you right now, people like Spirit, there's a reason why they're going to say yes instantly to every Astana event in Kazakhstan. But unfortunately, I think they actually would probably, they would just be the team that would skip Atlanta, I'd imagine, because they would say things like, it's an arse on to get the visa, plus, you know, maybe we need those days to do other events, like what if there's a major in America, or if it's in Europe, they actually, because they're Russians, by the way, I know that they're considered technically Europe, but they're not in the European Union, so they only get a certain amount of days in European Union as well. It's why they even, as far as I know, skip the odd Pro League every now and then, because they think that's the least important of the ESL events. If I have to like attend an event later, I'll skip that one now, so I still have the extra days in Europe. So unfortunately, there's actually, as usual, there's some like logistics things that are just don't work like that, unfortunately. And also, like, here's the sad thing. I know what you mean. Part of me wishes I could just watch one tournament every 2 weeks and then I'd never miss anything and I could take a week off. At the same time, I know what Maui means. Part of me also thinks, though, yeah, but that's also because we're hardcore, but we're also sort of general fans. We want to see everything that happened in Tier 1. If I really was, like Maui said, if I was just only a fan of, like, Spirit, for example, then actually, if they don't go to Atlanta, I'm not watching anyway. But if there's another tournament they can go to, maybe I do watch. So in a weird collective sense, it does help. And then also, there was one other detail as well, which is this, which is... two other details which go like this. One, unfortunately, VRS itself is going against what you want, mate, because as we've seen, the number one thing VRS has done is actually recreate the entire Tier 3 and Tier 2 land circuit scene. And in fact, like, because of the qualification thing, you even do get top teams that go down to that level to cynically get in and on it. And then lastly, the other thing as well as to why, as long as teams get to say where they go, and, you know, Valve doesn't force you to attend all the events, the other reason why teams will never totally all attend the same events is because they will be cynical and they will snipe. So, for example, like, I can tell you right now, especially if people had known in advance what that Atlanta event would be like, there might even be one or two more big teams who agreed to go because they would just be like, wait a minute, as you sort that event, some fucker like Gamer Legion's going to get like the third place prize money here or something, mate. Like, why do I nick along to this? Like, I could, if I'm already someone like a Mouse or something, actually, maybe I should have attended that event instead. I would have had a better chance to get some money cynically, even though I'm not as good a team. So, as usual, there's a world in which what you're saying could happen, and actually there's a lot of upside to it. I just think, unfortunately, it's probably, this is why you phrase it right, for you there's just too much CS. Sadly, this will never be fixed how you want, unfortunately. It's never going to be Formula 1 of the NBA, and it'll just be one season like that, you know. Sadly.
There'll never be a perfect balance. It's actually impossible because, you know, you either please the casual fans, like, or the people that are hardcore. And I think this is probably the best outcome, even though it does still... there's just too much to keep track of. And like, I'm more worried about the players. Like, I mean, you know, we had those interviews from years ago of like Elysian Twist talking about like burnout. Maybe it wasn't tweet. It was like Elysian. Like, I can only imagine how bad it's going to be after these couple of years with all of these nonstop events.
And I can just say as well, the other problem that you're going to run into in that sense is exactly that so far no one's ever actually nailed this exact topic, bro. Like if you ever go and look, if you go to games like the Riot games, etc., both of those, League of Legends and Valorant, we all meme on them. Like, think about how many times CS fans have done that thing. There was one last year, if you remember, where they'll just be... Remember when that guy who was a Valorant writer did that tweet, which wasn't even a meme. It looked like it was a God-tier rage bit. He meant it for real. You know where he wrote an article and it was like, this Valorant team has played 30 matches in 3 months. They are getting burned out. And there was obviously... I'm imagining some motherfuckers like in like Monty or something were looking up like, that's like a week for us, motherfucker. What are you talking about? Like, and so we all meme on them because in certain other games, you can have it in Valorant or League where if you fuck up your season, like you actually do a tweet in August that's like, well, that's me done for the year, guys. See you in 2027. And that's obviously going too far the other way, isn't it? That's like, you don't play enough. So at the moment, sadly, no one's nailed it, mate. So it's a fine thing to want, but we just haven't fixed it yet, unfortunately. Okay. Maui, what is your bad point?
Yeah, we haven't discussed pick'ems for a while, and I just think that they still suck. I think pick'ems are still bad. I think that the latest way that if people have been sleeping under a rock, I think it's been at least 3 majors now where you have to get the 3-0s correct. You have to get the 3-1, 3-2s in that fashion. You have to get 5 out of these 10, which... I mean, in theory, it kind of sounds easy, but in reality, just because the overlapping 3-0, 3-1 part means that if you get a team correct to advance, but then they go 3-0 and they were in your 3-1 area, that can just ruin your whole thing very easily. I mean, it's in fact very difficult. If you could theoretically get, I think you can get 8 picks correct, but if you get them in the wrong way, you might mess up the whole thing because you'll get 2 and 2 in the wrong area, and then you might only get 4 in your advancing column, and then if you miss out on both 0-3s, well then tough luck. So I think that, and I think I had something like that almost happen to me actually. But either way, just going back to Phoebe, she was like a social media person for G2. She also wrote some articles in the past. Twitter name
is Dualism. Yeah,
Dualism.
I actually play with her sometimes on stream.
97.
She's one of Vince's mates.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. She creates a spreadsheet every single every major for basically content creators, talent, players that post their pick'ems, anybody that almost has like any sort of brand following whatsoever in the Counter-Strike space. And for Austin, I'll remind people, nobody got it. Nobody got Diamond, except technically Prius. But then it was like, what the fuck were you even watching? Like he's doing Valorant events, and he got the Diamond coin.
By the way, there's an extra detail there, Maui. That one's even more egregious because the reason why there should have been loads of diamonds is because that was the easiest for the winner for the playoffs when we all just picked Vitality. Everyone had that, I'm pretty sure. So like that means no one's getting the Swiss stage right by that logic.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it was actually Ash through 2 stages of the major was one of the only people at Budapest that had a chance to even get Diamond. But then stage 3, he lost it. Right. I think it was stage 3. I think he lost it there. So I'm pretty sure he was the only content creator that through 2 stages had a chance at Diamond. And then he didn't even get it going into the playoffs, if I remember correctly. So it's just that my opinion is still that these pick'ems are just too brutally difficult, and it kind of saps the enjoyment out of it. Also, I'll say this on a personal level, and it's just kind of a petty grievance, I suppose, is just that it does lead to basically fans just saying all analysts, all creators are idiots. Because back in the day, for like the pre-2024 majors or whatever, it was actually relatively doable to get Diamond. Like, I think 30% of people got it, or 35% of people got it. Like, it wasn't always that difficult. Sometimes people would dream and go for the underdog and whatever. That is what it is. But it was very doable, and you could actually kind of judge somebody's ball knowledge based off of, are they getting diamond coins or gold coins? Now, I literally don't care about people's streaks. I don't care about their records. I don't care if anybody makes it or not, because I just think it's too hard. I know that like Scrawny is very proud of the fact that he's had golds for like 7 majors in a row. I mean, he'll get mad at me for not knowing the exact number, but he's gotten gold coins for like 7 majors in a row, and it's like with no diamonds, by the way. Like none of them were even diamonds, I think, for him since like 2019 or something. So it's just like the chance of it is still so minuscule to even pull it off. And I'll just say my one fix, I've said it last major, I'll say it again. I think for stages 1, 2, 3, it should be a running total. Instead of in every successive stage, you have to get at least 5 right.
Yes.
I would give people a little bit more credit that if they get, let's say stage 1, they actually get 8 right. I would say through stages 1, 2, and 3, 15 total points. That will give you the coin for, or essentially passing that stage of it, as opposed to, because I've seen people, this happens to them, where they get 7 correct, but then they get 4. And then they miss out on ever having a chance for diamond. And it's like, I think that person actually probably earned it because they did exceptionally well on one stage versus the other, which was a little bit more difficult to predict. So yeah, my rant being pick'ems just suck. They're just not fun.
By the way, your suggestion's also good because also it would keep you locked in even if you fuck one stage up, because essentially maybe you can just do a miracle one on stage 3 and get them all right or something. It would even keep people hooked in, What do you think on this, Austin? Are you a fan of the way the pick'ems are done?
Well, as someone who also makes my Pick'em's video every major cycle, I always get to hear about how little I know about the game because every time I miss a stage, they're like, yeah, we shouldn't have listened to this guy. It's like, bro, please stop. But yeah, I think the Pick'em's are just way too hard. I remember actually looking forward to doing Pick'em's every major back in CSGO when they had the old format. Like, okay, listen, everybody knows you put the 3-0 pick someone you know is going to, or maybe it's a risky one, right? And then the 0-3 is safe. And like the hardest part back then was who's going to win the major.
Yes.
Do we go for the safe bet or this team that maybe has a chance? I'm always going in on FaZe Clan, like stuff like that. But like, and now it's like, if you get the diamond coin, I'm almost like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Like, don't ever listen to this guy. It's unfortunate. I think I'm very shocked that they haven't made a change with all of the attention they did to all of the new sticker stuff and all the new UI there. I think it's a very big missed opportunity to just slightly change how pick'ems are calculated. But I don't know. I guess I think the worst part is you're right. I think it is a petty grievance, but all of these like newer players to the game, they always use like you got the bronze coin or silver coin as an insult. Like they try to diminish. Like they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You got this coin. I'm never listening to you again. People have said they unsubscribed. They say, I don't know what I'm talking about when I do my demo reviews because I got my pick'ems wrong. And clearly this guy doesn't know anything he's talking about. That can't be a real opinion that you have. I can't believe it.
And also, I feel like that actual take also is bullshit because it's never the same people that if you'd have gotten it all, if you'd have got an 8 out of 8 every stage, they wouldn't go, see, you are a genius, Austin. You know, they'd just go, who cares about pick'ems? Like, there's never any fair play to that one, is there? Like, that's, like, I've had majors back in the day, sadly the ones I used to work, where I used to have, like, I would have gotten the diamond, but the joke is I couldn't do a pick of, like, a live match because I was doing all the fucking matches. I was on the match, like, so I used to never be able to get the diamond. I used to get to the gold and I could never do the playoff part, which actually used to be way trickier back in the day. I mean, the joke is Austin never would have got diamond anyway. He was picking bloody FaZe Clan every tournament, so they would have blue balls to fuck up him. No wonder he wants karrigan to retire / leave the game. Then he can finally get diamond pick'ems. Exactly. Then there's no FaZe bullshit, is there? Karrigan bullshit, whatever. No, I do agree because if people don't know, without going too in depth, essentially the reason why the old system was very good is because it wasn't like super impossible. It just was tricky. That was all. So if everyone knows the old system, where essentially you could just cheat because you could, on the 3-0s, you could gamble, but you could just guarantee that someone who was going through went through anyway and put it into the main body. On that one, the formula used to be you just need to get 1 3-0 right, 1 0-3, and then you only need half of the 6 other ones. Well, 3 out of 6 is very doable. And also, usually, just from luck, you can get a 0-3 and a 3-0, right? If anything, by the way, actually, 0-3 was way easier back in the day as well, wasn't it? Like, with the VRS parity now and the fact that you have teams from regions that don't even play big tournaments, sometimes you have no fucking clue who's going to be the 0-3s. It's because essentially you're going like, right, what did it look like when LinVision played this Australian team versus there's a South American team I've never seen play a tier 1 LAN and they almost won a map off Legacy? What does that mean though? Like, what mathematics am I even doing? What analysis am I doing on that? I'm basically just picking with my gut. Or the joke is, even though it's not what I'm doing, this is what fans think, I'm just picking which country I hate, apparently. So there's that shit as well, isn't it? Like, if you think players get salty about opinions on these shows, my God, don't ever dare pick one of their teams to go 0-3. They'll act like you've said they should be lined up and shot. It's outrageous, isn't it? Like, the people are taking this shit way too personal. Like, spoiler, if I pick Shark Esports 0-3, Maui, I don't fucking watch Shark Esports play. Maybe you are secretly good. I've just never seen you play CS, so why would I pick is my point. Like, it's no diss to you. It's basically just to the fucking circuit that you don't play in it. So there's that. And then also, I know what you mean. My problem is this, is it's like you said at the beginning, the real issue is the new system isn't just harder. It's so harsh because essentially if you ever fuck up the 3-0, you've burned 2 slots. You burn the 3-0 slot and the 3-1, 3-2-1. So I am with you. I don't get why they've averted that system. Like, I understand we were all essentially abusing a loophole when we did do the thing before where you never really put someone 3-0. If anything, you put the gamble team 3-0, don't you? And then you put all the other ones safe. The problem is, though, it made it way more engaging to do the pick'em. Because as we're saying here, by the time you even reach the playoffs, 99% of even famous people aren't even giving a fuck about the coin anymore. In fact, hasn't everyone now copied my joke already? Which is the same hater who with the old system who used to go, you know nothing. Don't we all just do our own edgy counted circle joke? Or we, as famous creators, we all go, it's the other way around. You're a moron if you did get the diamond. Which is like, we shouldn't even be coping like that either. That's whack too, boys. Even though I agree with it, it's just nonsense. And I'll tell you the reason why I think they fucked up changing the pick'ems. Because actually, I'll give you a contrast. In League of Legends, when Worlds comes, Riot does a pick'em, but theirs is absurd. Theirs is, in theory, to be the number one person, you have to get all of the results right. Not even the who plays who. You have to get the results. So if there's ever an upset, by the way, your pick'em is just dead instantly. And as I've told this story before, they had one Worlds where it had the craziest upset ever. A small unknown team from Russia beat the number one Korean team in the world in a BO1 and ruined the pick'em, right? But there was one human being actually did still have that in his pick'em, and this is a famous story, so I've told it many times before. They went and asked him, how did you possibly get that? And like a meme, he said, oh, I just filled it out when I was drunk. So the idea was like the only brain that got the pick'em correct was just destroyed by alcohol to the point it couldn't identify that the best Korean team in the world shouldn't lose to a random team from Russia that no one even knows. So I would just say, do we want that to be the pick'em? Because like the point I'm making here is that doesn't really test for who has the best knowledge about the game. It almost just becomes like a random lottery for idiots, doesn't it? It's just like at this point, some kid. The joke would be, all right, I won't be too harsh when I say this, but Maui knows what I mean. He's worked enough events. When we would work events, they often wanted to do, actually, like famously, they used to do predictions competitions on air, didn't they? At the end of each round, we did it on Flashpoint 2. They'd tell you who got the most picks right. Without being rude, there have actually genuinely been times where mates of mine who work as like girls as interviewers, who aren't even dedicated CS people, they also do PUBG and fucking COD and FIFA. They've beaten me in prediction contests, Austin. Not because they wouldn't even tell you they know more, because they didn't know more. So I'd make stupid points like, oh, the veto means it has to be this team that wins. They'd just go, I like Stewie 2K though, he's cool, isn't he? And they'd pick his team. And then the upset would happen and all fans would be going, she's beating your ass in that prediction contest. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Actually know less about the game so I could make some pick that shouldn't exist but happens. So anyway, as usual, this whole section was pathetic because it was all cope that we're not going to get the diamond coin. And we want the diamond coin. And despite what we all said about fans being wrong about it meaning that, we want that bloody diamond coin to show that we do know everything, Austin, and we are the gods. So give us that fucking at least give us here's the thing, just give us a fair chance at the diamond coin, Valve. That's all we ask. I'll live and die on my results being wrong, but just give me that loophole back. It was good. I actually didn't everyone love the fucking coin challenge way more back then? It was fun, wasn't it? Even if we were complaining, it was still even fun when people flamed you and said you got it wrong. Whatever, who cares? It was good.
Yeah,
I liked it.
100% agree with you. If people need any more evidence for why pick'ems are terrible, I had literally Vitality on a lossless streak as my 3-0, and they lost a Legacy in a best of one. And I lost my pick'ems at the Austin Major to that.
That is bad.
Like, impossible. It's insane.
Oh, because you need them the 3-0, right? I see what you mean.
Yes,
yeah.
and then they go through and I lose both spots. How was I supposed to?
No, by the way, that's also fair because at the time, they would actually mathematically have been the most likely 3-0 team in the history of Counter-Strike. So by this logic, you were supposed to just go, I think I'll just imagine they randomly lose to a Brazilian team on BO1. Like, I know, it doesn't really make sense, does it?
No.
Okay. The last... well, no, it's actually Maui's now. So what is your bad point, Maui? Oh, no, wait, that was it is mine. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's yours.
Right, the last point of the show is this. There's another detail about the major. It's a minor one, but I have a gripe about this, which is, you know how last year there was that famous moment at one of the blasts where actually Astralis didn't even exploit the original thing, but they did a version of this. You know when Astralis had gotten Cadian, but they got him to play at a blast, even though at the time he wasn't even on the roster. And what they were trying to exploit was that emergency sub rule, right? That you can have a sub registered and then he can play, right? The reason I bring this up is, right, One of the things I think still sucks about the Major and the way it works is because they don't want people in theory to make roster moves. The only way you can make a roster move is everyone has one free roster move, which is you can just register someone as your sub and then pretend you're subbing them in, but really they're just the real player and actually another person you move out. Now, the reason I bring this up is one of the things I hate in CS is that we're actually really noob compared to sports in a lot of areas. Like an example would be, even though now they do a good job doing it, back in the day, if you used to go on Wikipedia, there actually was no way to know who the IGL of a team was. You just had to really be like us in the scene and be locked in and know, like, oh, actually, this guy's the IGL now. So in certain teams, it was a nightmare, bro. Like, I've seen broadcast talents get wrecked where they were like, oh, you don't know that this guy just changed. It's not even like a famous team, you know, it's like the fucking 28th best team in the world. And they just did like a secret one that you'd have to be like, you know, in their Telegram channel, or you'd have to be Brazilian and have read a website. And so similarly, when you have this event, I'm sure you all did the same thing as me. When you looked at the stage one pick'em to lock them all in, you look at people, and the one I was thinking about was obviously BetBoom for this. You look at BetBoom. Well, I've just seen BetBoom at these recent events. They're looking fucking good, mate. They beat Vitality. The problem is, technically, Flammus is like their sub, and at the moment, it's actually not even known if Flammus will be playing or the Deliniers guy will be there. So we don't even know. Will it be their standing that players? Will it be the other lineup before they were good? Will it be the one I just saw that was really good? No one knows. And in fact, to this day, there's no real way to find that info out. So essentially, what I've put as my bad is this like bizarre roster uncertainty that we've created, where because we're allowing people to abuse this sub loophole, where it's not really a sub, it's just your current player, it's just you getting around the eligibility rules. It means that actually, if you're people like us trying to analyse on stream or as a preview or something, how are we supposed to know who's playing for the team? And this is really weird because in every other major sport I'm aware of, you usually on some level have to like register what the roster is, or, you know, maybe you can make like an emergency sub or something. But even so, I feel like for CS of all games as well, remember other games when you sub, you can come in and out the game. CS, like, normally it's just 5 players. There aren't really subs in CS. Like, really, that's why that was really designed not even just to be a sub. It was designed to be an emergency sub in case someone like had a family death or they got like food poisoning or something. So I just think that's a bad point. The idea that we can't know even who the 5 players are. The BetBoom one especially, because here's the difference. I'm pretty sure a lot of people like me who put them 3-0 might not depending on which roster's playing. Maybe if we know the other roster's playing, maybe we don't put them 3-0. Maybe we have them getting in barely 3-2 or something. So I want to know what you think, Austin. What do you think about this weird angle where technically we don't even know who plays for these teams, boys?
Well, I didn't even know about the BetBoom thing. That's how like little I think people have heard about that. But also that does make that does make things way more complicated when it comes to like how these like roster moves have to be presented, where it's like we like Mouse, for example, like we have JL for the next event and then Brawlin's going to play the major, but then after that we're going to replace somebody else. Like, wait, what? So who's playing for the major? Like, you know, or even like Falcons, like, not that it really matters for us, but like, you know, Kixon has a sticker in the game for Falcons, like, but it's karrigan that's playing and he's already been announced as their starter. So like Valve is considering karrigan a sub, but everywhere else, like, they know that he's just their player. It's like, it's so weird that we have to like pretend for Valve when we could just like maybe make an agreement and be like, hey man, like, you know, can we just change this rule a little bit just to make it cleaner? But I will say, surely the players have some sort of list of like, the players should know who they're playing at least. So there's not going to be as much of like, I didn't know that BetBoom was going to have a sub. Like, you know, I think the matches are already drawn for the first round, right? So surely they would know, like, whoever plays BetBoom is like, okay, I know that it's going to be this version. But like, why do we not know? Like, that should be public information
just give us a
for
public
us.
List. Yeah, agreed.
It's one of the ways that this scene is definitely needing to mature, where most regular sports, you just kind of have a transfer window that ends on a certain day. Like, you can't make any roster moves X amount of time before it. But now with these sub rules, they've kind of found a way to get around these restrictions. It does make things much more convoluted to follow in the space, and that's just kind of detracting from what we have. It's weird though, because the way it plays out, I actually think I might like the overall outcome, where it allows Falcons and BetBoom to play with the players they actually want to play with because of the sub rules, but it still is a bit jarring. I mean, I like that you brought up the Wikipedia aspect of, or just like in general, IGLs and everything like that. It would be nice if there was some more formal. Actually, I've noticed that. You'll basically have to follow the Twitter accounts of like every team to find some of the little minutia in the contract details also, where HLTV actually tried at one point. It's maybe a tangent, but HLTV at one point tried to list everybody's contract details whenever it was public information. I think they've actually deleted all of that. I don't think they even try anymore because they probably were told a couple times that they're wrong, even though because I think, for example, K Serato, I know this for sure. K Serato, it used to say on his HLTV page, around where it says his age, current team. Oh, actually, it does say it still. It says if you highlight his contract, it shows like contract ends June 2027.
Right.
Certainty is the month, and there's a link to their source on these kinds of things. But then I don't think they know everything all the time. And so they do know certain aspects, like if Senzu's on a loan, it'll have that in parentheses, but it's just not perfect. It's just not, and I feel like the announcements aren't uniform amongst all the teams because there's no, in my eyes, I guess there's no formal body that they have to actually submit all of this information to. So just keeping track of everything becomes a little messier than it should in the game. So that's just one of the ways that the space is still juvenile.